Tim Kawakami here, 49ers plus minus on a Tuesday cutdown day. We've had some technical difficulties. We are a work in progress as much as the 49ers cut to 53 was today. Barrows had some struggles, some technological differences with the StreamYard setup or whatever it was in his computer, but we got him here on the phone. Barrows, if he sounds a little different, it looks a little different, that's why it is. But Barrows, we're fighting through it. 49ers cut to 53. It was one of the oddest cuts to 53 I can remember. Just what strikes you generally about what happened today?
Well, the thing that strikes me most is that they've got two healthy wide receivers right now. And one of those guys, by the way, has gone through 1.5 practices so far with the team. That's Sky Moore. The other healthy guy is Ricky Pearsall. We don't really know what's going on with Juwan Jennings. That's a big sort of question mark at this point. But, I mean, we've been talking about this a lot the last couple of weeks. It still suggests that they're going to do other things at that position. And, some interesting names, we'll just, phrase it like that, became available today. Would not be surprised if somebody is added either on the practice squad or on the active roster to really kind of help this team get through the early part of the season. Demarcus Robinson is out for 3 weeks. He's suspended. That became official today. Also official, Brandon Ayuk landing on PUP. That means he's out the first 4 games. Probably isn't going to be, back in action until at least, let's say, week 6 or so, full speed. So that's the biggest thing to take away. Sebastian Valdez, we talked a lot about him.
Yeah.
And we thought that he was probably going to make the squad. Now they have to kind of sweat it out over the next 24 hours when he goes through waivers and see if anybody else snaps him up. But I thought it was interesting when you break it down, which players sort of beat out other players to land on at least this initial roster.
Yeah. Sebastian Valdez didn't make the 11 defensive linemen they kept. Like I would have thought maybe if they go 9, he doesn't even. They go 11, which is amazing. They kept 11 defensive linemen and 10 offensive linemen, 21 linemen on a 53-man roster. Obviously, there will be changes and moves, but like those are the people they want on the roster, right? I guess they thought they might lose Robert Beal if they exposed him. I guess Evan Anderson, same thing, or maybe he just beat out Valdez, which I did not see myself on the field, but coaches are looking at other things. And then they keep they keep 10 offensive linemen. Drew Moss, they keep. They cut Nick Zakelj, but they keep Connor Colby. They keep a lot of people. I just am a little confused by that because they cut all these other Russell Gage and Robbie Chosen and Curtis Robinson, guys. I think Jeff Wilson Jr., guys I've been talking like I think they're going to use, and I think they still think they're going to use, but they cut them and they keep Drew Moss and some other guys. I'm a little confused by. Did they have to raise Yetur Gross-Matos from PUP to get him on the roster to make sure he's their 10th defensive lineman? Really went fat at those two positions. I get it. Line of scrimmage, that's what they believe in. Maybe they really thought they were going to lose Drew Moss. I wouldn't have thought so. Not watching the one-on-one drills, but maybe he's gotten better and better. And I guess they don't fear losing Jeff Wilson Jr. I think there's going to be a ton of practice squad guys that they really are going to count on, but they only get to elevate him 3 times a year, right? Like, you can't just he's not really part of your roster. So there's some confusing things. The receiver more than I was confused. They didn't put Jacob Cowing on injured reserve. They put him on the regular roster. They probably will put him on coming up, but they could have had designated to return Jacob Cowing. That would have given them another spot here. It really went interesting, kind of so fat on the lines and so thin at wide receiver. And I think pretty thin at linebacker too. They went with 5. Normally would go with 6. They cut Chaz Surratt and they cut Curtis Robinson. 2 guys I think we both thought probably would both make it, and they both special teams guys, and they both go down. It was really a weird thing, just work in progress. Shanahan talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but man, they went to the extreme with this. Let's go to Juwan Jennings. I mean, I wrote yesterday they could put him on IR. I still think it's possible if they don't know if he's going to play. And this cuts two ways, right? They've cut the receiving room down so far that they really do need Juwan Jennings if he's going to be on the 53 to practice and to play. But also, like, I mean, they've cut themselves, like they could bring 2 or 3 more guys there if they've cut it down so thin. And that Kendrick Bourne did not get cut. That's the guy we've been circling as someone they could. I'm just a little confused where, like, if they are counting on Juwan Jennings and they don't know if he's going to play, what have they got at receiver? I mean, Sky Moore, for all we familiar name and reasonably high draft pick, caught 0 passes last year. He's their veteran. He's their number 2 veteran right now. Caught 0 passes. Ricky Pearsall's like, he's the guy. He got 31 passes last year. They have 31 healthy receptions on their 53-man roster. Woo! I mean, even if they do some surgery, it's going to be really interesting. And now the Juwan Jennings thing becomes very interesting. Of course, it's been interesting the whole time. Got Shanahan and John Lynch talking tomorrow, so maybe there will be some resolution on that regard. Maybe there won't be. I don't know. I'm interested in this. It does look like they've got, like, let's just have like a 59-man roster with all these guys that we know won't get cut and won't get picked up by other teams. We'll be on our practice squad because I think Jeff Wilson's going to play on this team, and he got cut. And I think Robbie Chosen's going to play on this team, and he got cut. Thomas Morstead, their punter, got cut. They'll bring him back. You just can't keep bringing guys back, though, because then you have to cut other people. I am confused by a lot of these things. If it all works out, it'll be a genius kind of like Moneyball sort of thing is what I'm looking at. They're kind of trying to play the system, but you're exposing yourself to some guys getting picked up by other teams. You can only play, bring them up 3 times for the practice squad. Man, there's a lot going on with this roster. There's some gambling. I've never seen a team do this with a punter before. Let's just cut him and we'll bring him back. It's bizarre. Where else do you think they're a little thin right now?
Well, you mentioned linebacker. Their week 1 opponents, the Seattle Seahawks, kept 2 fullbacks, sort of signaling what they're going to be about this year, which is running the ball a lot. And the 49ers kind of go into that game with 5 linebackers. I do think that Surratt and Robinson are practice squad candidates that you can, move up as needed. And one of those guys may end up being permanently promoted at some point this season. As far as the offensive line, this was a team that, last year saw Jarrett Kingston get snapped up off of waivers. The year before it was Ilm Manning. They always seem to have a developmental offensive lineman who gets, swiped by another team. So obviously they didn't want to do that with Drew Moss. I think that the 49ers feel like he's their center of the future, and we haven't seen him play a snap of center yet. But this is based on what Chris Foerster said, that this guy doesn't have great length. He's probably not perfect for guard, but he's really strong. He's really stout, and he moves well. And so sometimes with centers, Matt Hennessy is a good example. You get a guy who's smart, who's good on his feet. He's just not as powerful as some of these other guys. So I think that that's the plan for Moss. I mean, that said, give him a 53-man spot because of that? I mean, he seems like a developmental player who's perfect for the practice squad, especially if we're going to use him at center in the future. But I mean, like I said, this team's been bitten before when it comes to the waiver wire. And, this year, I think they're the shoppers on waivers, and they're not the sellers. And I think wide receiver is going to be one of those. We mentioned linebacker. Obviously, you recall my draft crush, Pooh Paul, out of Ole Miss.
We all do.
He was a surprise cut today by the Los Angeles Rams. That would be a nice pickup. It would be sort of an FU to the Rams, who last year, swiped a couple of 49ers players. And I'm sure the Rams would like Pooh Paul back on their practice squad. the 49ers can snap him up and bring him to the active roster. Like you noted, they have to cut somebody. They have to make or put somebody on IR. I think Jacob Cowing absolutely is heading to IR. This allows the 49ers to, he's a 6-week at least injury. They don't have to use one of their designated to return. They only have 8 of those a season. One is already going to be used on Kevin Givens. So it just kind of, gives you the option. Maybe you have an abundance of wide receivers by midseason. You don't need Jacob Cowing this year. That's a possibility. You probably will at some point, but putting him on IR tomorrow, for example, will allow you the option to kind of make him one of those guys that you do bring back, but you don't have to. You don't have to use up one of your designated to.
It's not committed to him. Yeah, it's not
You're not
committed,
committed to doing that. So I think that's what the thinking is there.
Jordan Watkins, I mean, I thought he was an IR candidate, might still be, but you carry both of them on the 53. It's interesting to me. Do you think he's not going to go on IR, or I mean, I think he probably should go. If you ask me, if you need live bodies,
I don't think he will go. I think he's a question mark for week 1, but I think they feel good that week 2, week 3, he's going to be back. And remember, you have to have 7 guys inactive on game days anyway. So he would be one of your Seattle inactives, and then theoretically, you sign a Russell Gage to the practice squad. Maybe you sign somebody else that was cut today from another team to the practice squad. Those guys are, you can promote for one game, and they can play against Seattle. So I think that's what they're thinking right now. Can't see any team clamoring to sign Russell Gage. Remember, if you take a guy off of waivers, you have to bring him to your active roster.
Yep.
So I don't think any team is going to do that. I think that they feel pretty secure about Gage. Probably feel the same way about Robbie Chosen. Probably feel the same way about Tariq Owens. So they can sort of bulk up that very, very thin wide receiver group via the practice squad, at least until the DeMarcus Robinsons, the Brandon Ayuk's, et cetera, are ready to play again.
Yeah, I would underline again. You can only do it 3 times a piece for each player, so then that might run out fast. Maybe that's all they need him for the first 3 weeks, first 3 of the 4, or whatever that works out to be. Another sneaking thought I had was 10 offensive linemen. Is there some worry about Dominic Pooty in week 1? Like, you're just loading up with guards. I mean, there's so many guards on this roster. Do you think that's in question at all?
I don't. I mean, I think it's a question. I think if it was a real big question, they would have hung on to Zakel, who you've seen play in an NFL game. He can get it done. Right now, if something were to happen with Pooney, if he, had something happened with the knee that they weren't expecting, it would be Connor Colby starting at right guard. So a 7th-round rookie starting at right guard in week 1 in Seattle would be a tough ask. So that tells me that they're pretty confident that Pooney's going to be back. We saw him the other day. He had a sleeve on his knee. He was doing some light running. Seems like he might be back next week when practices begin in earnest. That's how I'm reading it. They kept 4 tackles, the 2 starters plus Spencer Burford and Austin Pleasance. We sort of saw that coming from maybe 10 days ago when Dillard was cut. Isaiah Prince was hurt in the preseason game on Saturday. So basically, they've got 2 swing guys. I'm sure Burford is going to be the guy who's in uniform on game days. But if McKivitz were to go down for a period of time, they might basically be, dressing Pleasance and playing him at right tackle. So, I think that's probably a thin position across the league, and it's certainly a thin position for the 49ers.
There's a whole lot of guys that sound like they're in line to be inactive, but you only get you only get 7 inactives. They're going to have a lot of inactives. I guess 9 if you bring up 2 practice squad guys. It just seems like they've built a roster full of guys that are probably not going to play. Not full of guys, but a lot of guys are probably going to play. And there's guys on the practice squad who I think should play over them. It's just this weird combination of I don't knows out there. And Jordan James, who I was like wondering if he was going to be put on IR or when is this? Maybe he will, but I guess not. But then you have 4 running backs, so that's another one that's going on the deactives. It's like a whole lot of stuff going on. And I'm the one who floated out Isaac Orendo. Maybe he gets cut. He does not get cut, but I'm looking at that one. I'm interested there. There's a whole lot of.
Do I get a point for that?
You get a point. You got a bunch of points on this one. I was Evan Anderson. Obviously, that's your whole thing. This was a weird one. This went away from a lot of things that I was thinking. I thought Curtis Robinson almost was guaranteed a spot, and maybe at some point he will be back. But player rep, respected guy, fought back from injury, interception return for a touchdown in the preseason. I just thought that's a guy that they're going to want on this team. And he gets cut. There was a lot of surprises to me that does seem like an unsettled situation. They wouldn't argue with that. All these injuries have unsettled a lot of things, and we're going to see them make moves, I'm sure, throughout this week, maybe next week and into the season. They're going to go back and forth with guys because they just don't have, that second to third layer of the roster is weird this year, and especially because a lot of it got hurt. But there's a lot of this I'm still trying to wrap my head around, and that I don't know what kind of things they're thinking about all these guys, specifically the hurt guys that you're not sure about. I don't know what they think about Jordan James going in this season. I don't know what they think about Jordan Watkins going in this season. I don't know what they think about, Matt Hennessy makes this roster. I mean, Matt Hennessy made the roster, and then they kept another guy that they think they could play center. It's really interesting, kind of the bets they made. Now we'll see who gets plucked, if anybody does. We'll see who's healthy, who's out in the practice field. I just think it's like couched about 3 or 4 different ways, and it's a sign of an unsettled team, is what I feel like.
The Valdez waiving did surprise me because he's looked good in games, he's looked good in practices, and here's the kicker. He's been the one defensive lineman who's been healthy throughout the spring and the summer. He hasn't missed a single practice over that span. And there aren't any other. I don't think there are any other. Maybe Bryce Huff did that as well. He certainly didn't play a lot in the spring, but that's rare on this 49ers team. And very rare for the defensive line group, as we know, got really kind of dinged up and beat down this summer.
Were you surprised by your Turk Gross-Matos being put on the active?
Well, yeah, I would have been a good way to get somebody else on the active roster while he recovers in full. They like Turk Gross-Matos. They think that he's a starting caliber defensive lineman. He figures in well, so I can only imagine that they want him up. They want him contributing, and he did finally pass his kind of physical that he had to do coming back from that knee cleanup. So I think that's probably good news. We haven't seen him practice in 2025 yet, so if he's on the field on Wednesday, they have a late afternoon practice. That'll be the first time that we've seen him there. To your point from a few days ago, you were watching Robert Beal get a lot of special teams snaps. You're watching Darrell Luter get a lot of special team snaps. Both of those guys made the initial roster, and Beal made it over Trevis Gibson. I think I'm saying it right this time. Gibson. And the other guy's Gifford. And then Luter made it over Dallas Flowers. And that surprised me a bit because I thought that Flowers had been more stable. He'd been in the starting lineup a lot longer than Luter. Luter was up and down. I think that Luter did start to come on towards the end. And so they like his upside. He's also a draft pick. He's also playing a lot of special teams. I think that probably swung it for him in the end.
That's the one thing that I hit this year, which is my normal thing. just watch who's playing special teams in those preseason games. That's the most important thing for roster. It's not exactly how everyone plays when it's offense versus defense, because that can be scrambled because you're either you're a third stringer and you're lining up against third stringers, or a second stringer lining up against fourth stringers. Who's throwing out there? Who's covering the punts in the preseason? Because that's where they try to use their first team out there, because they need to get them the reps. And if you see somebody who's like on the borderline and he's getting tons of reps on the special teams, somebody who I would circle, say, I think that person's going to make the team. Now, I would have thought again about the same thing about Curtis Robinson and Chad Surratt, but maybe they're bringing him back. But Saran Neal makes it as like an extra defensive back. Like they went deep at defensive back too. It's all very interesting. And all the other thing is when they sent out Jair Brown, Luke Farrell. I can't even. Yeah, we're getting these Lukes all mixed up. The linebacker
Gifford.
and Luke Gifford. Jeez, their names are similar. And Spencer Burford wasn't going to be in jeopardy because those three guys were the captains for the last. None of them are getting cut. Like that's when I knew Jair Brown was not going to get cut. There's signals they send out sometimes in games that I am not confused by. I am confused by some of the things that they did at the Cutdown. But we'll see. I mean, we've talked about this is like a backfilling preseason. Like they're backfilling the roster. They're like doing stuff and then knowing that down the road they're going to get other guys in here. Did you see anybody on the waiver wire that interested you? Like that could be headed to the 49ers?
Yeah, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. What wide receivers could get cut who would be interesting for the 49ers? And most of those guys ended up getting cut today. A couple of them did not. Kendrick Bourne didn't. I think that the New England Patriots held on to 8 wide receivers, and Bourne has not been part of their training camp. He doesn't seem to be part of their future plans. They seem to be trying to trade him and, trying to get something for him and not giving him away for free. And so I think that he's still somebody that the 49ers, their fans, should think about as a possibility. Might not be today, might not be this week. It might be during the season, but hard to see them holding on to 8 wide receivers. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And then I'm not sure about Curtis Samuel. He was also on the list. He was supposed to be on the bubble in Buffalo, but he would be a veteran receiver who could come in and give you decent snaps. The other guys are, 2 ex-49ers, Ronnie Bell and Dante Pettis. They know the offense.
Were they both cut? I missed that.
They were both cut. River Craycraft, who's been on this team, was cut by Miami. He's another guy that could come in and play for you on September 7th. I don't think that that's in the cards, but I'm just saying. And then, there's a guy, Malachi Corley, somebody that they brought in for a pre-draft visit last year. He was drafted by the Robert Saleh-led New York Jets last year. Didn't work out. New coaching staff over there. He's sort of a Debo type player. Not a great route runner, not tremendous speed, but he does break tackles. The issue with that is that, the 49ers sort of got their gadget guy in Sky Moore. So if I'm the 49ers and I'm worried about weeks 1 through 3, I want somebody who runs routes well. I want somebody who flies down the field and puts pressure on the back end. So Marquez Valdez-Scantling just got released by the Seattle Seahawks. The 49ers could sign him tomorrow if they wanted. So he's somebody who played for Mike LaFleur in Green Bay, Matt LaFleur, and for Clint Kubiak in both New Orleans and this offseason in Seattle. So somebody who would be familiar with the offense, would not need a lot of runway to get going. So those are the names. Hunter Renfrow, I feel like they have their Hunter Renfrow in Sky Moore. Those are the ones that jumped out to me.
Yeah, I like Valdez-Scantling as just a different kind of receiver than what they've got. And Robbie Chosen kind of fits in there too. So we'll see what they do with Robbie Chosen. I might pick him over all of them, and that might be end up who they bring back. But other teams might have seen what he's done, and he might get plucked by someone else. You don't know. How many ads? Let's just do a little over under. I mean, what would you say the total number of guys they sign from other teams, waiver wire cuts, that they bring in this week? What's the total?
To their active roster?
Yeah, to their active roster.
To their active roster, I'd say it's one. It's one.
Okay. I'd say two, receiver and something else. I'm not sure what the something else, but yeah, it's hard to say too many because they've got so many things they got to do, right? They've got to put some guys on IR. They got to bring the punter back. It looks like they could do a million things, but they have to do a million things internally first, and they have to create these spots. And they clearly don't want to cut, like you would say, cut on the offensive line, but they kept those guys over other guys. So I don't think they're cutting Drew Moss. I don't think they're cutting Robert Beal. They kept these guys with some sort of purpose. So you can't just say they'll go into it. I don't know if you're going to carry 11 defensive linemen in the season, though. That just seems absurd. But maybe, I am curious to ask John Lynch about this. It's like, can you explain why you're carrying 11 defensive linemen? That's unnecessary in the NFL. It's like, that's not what you do in the NFL, but maybe that's the plan. Maybe they're happy with that. I know there was some buzz about kickers being cut. I do not believe that they are in any way thinking about moving on from Jake Moody. I mean, they could be unhappy with him. We can all know the misses. I just don't think they want to think about it. Would you disagree with that?
No, I think that's their plan. And Greg Joseph, a guy that was in their camp, has been available all along. So if they're trying to move on from Jake Moody, they would probably do it with Greg Joseph, and they're not at this point. Now, if they lose 17-16 in Seattle because of a missed field goal at the end, we could be kind of talking about this. I feel like Jake Moody is going to be the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to this podcast.
Yes. He ain't going away. He's just not. He's at least for 3-4 weeks for sure, and probably the whole season. One draft pick cut, the only one, Junior Bergen. Really late pick, but I know some people are excited about him. I think we both agreed the Sky Moore signing was a clear indication that they were not seeing Junior Bergen's fit on this roster the way it was set up. And then we didn't even really see him at wide receiver at the end of camp, right? He was barely getting any offensive reps. It was just the returner, and you just can't hold a spot open for just a returner. Any other rookies in there that you're surprised made it, or you think, or have a little bit of an arrow going up as we go into the regular season?
Well, I don't really know what the plan is with Curtis Rourke, the quarterback who was taken in the 7th round and who's going to start the season on NFI. So NFI is like PUP. You have to sit out at least the first 4 games. The 49ers, and we've discussed this ad nauseum. We don't need to talk about it anymore, but they didn't seem really serious about their number 3 quarterback this summer. And now both Tanner Mordecai and Carter Bradley have been waived, injured. They both suffered ankle injuries Saturday against the Chargers. I don't know what the plan is for the beginning of the season. I mean, obviously the long-term plan is to have Curtis Rourke be the young guy, the young developmental guy. Does that start happening in week 5? Is this a redshirt year for him? Do they bring in a placeholder for the first 6 weeks of the season to be on the practice squad? I don't really know what they're thinking with that. Just in practical purposes, during a regular season practice, it'll be Mac Jones getting the scout team reps. So Mac Jones will play Sam Darnold in week 1, for example, and mimic the Seahawks offense. So you don't really need a third quarterback, but I mean, in this league, you do, because there's so many injuries. I mean, Mac Jones just got hurt the other day.
Yep.
So that's a question mark to me. And I don't think Carter Bradley's the answer. I don't think Tanner Mordecai is the answer. I don't think Nate Sudfeld's the answer. A lot of quarterbacks were released today. So I think that's another position that they'll probably bring in. It'll probably be to the practice squad. But they'll have the opportunity to kind of experiment with a young quarterback like they did with Bradley and Mordecai this summer.
You kind of need to throw a quarterback just to make sure Purdy's arm doesn't fall off, right? Just throw those receiver drills. So you just don't want your QB1 to go through every single pass, is what I would think. Unless Shanahan's arm livens up and he starts throwing those balls. Who knows?
It might be Jake Lynch as the third quarterback.
Jake Lynch, he had a nice go round at it.
Man, this nepotism thing doesn't really end here.
No, it doesn't. Not with this team. Not with this team. Absolutely not. Yeah. Anything else you got here? I'm just kind of just still going over. I was very, very baffled by some of these things. I get that there's ways that this could all work, but it is cutting it close on certain things. And maybe that's just the spot they're in now. They're not the superpower roster they were in 2019. They've had these injuries to deal with, but I'm just still like, okay, let's see it all play out over the next few days. Starting with the receiving group, which just seems like Matt Barrows. What if Ricky Pearsall gets hurt? Like, this happens. I don't know that they ever ask these questions of themselves sometimes. Like, what if this happens? They're like, it's so great. We're optimistic. This person is going to be out there. And then one guy gets hurt and the whole thing looks like it's really, really, really in trouble. So I would just posit all those things. Maybe they've got all these backups and all these plans. It doesn't feel like they do this time. I get it. You can't back yourself up at every position. I am waiting to see. This is a big, okay, TBA. It's a TBA roster, and that can get a little dangerous sometimes. Sometimes you can get away with it, but sometimes it can be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that this roster is going to look different by the weekend, and it'll probably look different heading into the Seattle game. And they've got a plan to sort of, plug the holes in the dam early on with their practice squatters. But you're right. I mean, that's contingent on all these guys you're counting on coming back to full strength, actually doing that. And oftentimes that doesn't happen, or other guys get hurt in the meantime. You can definitely see that happening with this team. Week 1 in Seattle.
Yeah. Nobody's ever been hurt on that turf.
Fake field, a history of Grizzly 49ers injuries in Seattle. So, it starts week 1.
The dreaded artificial the second week too. The dreaded back-to-back artificial turf.
That's right.
They're in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Probably not as much of a history of 49ers players lying on the field with busted up legs there, but
there have been a few. Kendall Hunter, I remember in that Super Bowl year, that was a big injury because it forced LaMichael James into action, and they did not trust LaMichael James as much as they did their other running backs. So,
and then he got the ball in the Super Bowl and he fumbled it. That was a huge play. In that.
Well, another huge play is Frank Gore running down, huge gain towards the end of the game, but it was such a big gain that he had to come out. He was winded. So the 49ers are down there at the goal line, and they have to put LaMichael James in. Mm-hmm. And LaMichael James had fumbled earlier in the game, and they didn't trust LaMichael James in those short yardage situations. And so that led to those curious play calls at the end and eventually a 49ers loss.
Yeah, well, they had Kaepernick keeping it on one of them, but it was false start?
Delay a game or Harbaugh called timeout.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, yeah, and they could have given it to Frank at some point in there, but they did not. I just saw Harbaugh, so I'm not going to be ripping him here.
I just saw Frank. Yeah,
I saw Frank too. So, all good. All right, that we just went through a confusing roster spot, but there could be a lot of answers in the next few days. There are secrets and there are puzzle pieces and there are little answers to come, and I'm sure they've got them. Let's see if it all work out. All right, Barrows, I'm glad we got through the technology. Hopefully it gets all fixed in the future. You had issues. Dylan had issues yesterday. I have advice for all of you. Buy a new laptop. That's my advice. All right, everybody. See ya.